Greetings, friends. I got out of town this past week from Monday to Wednesday. I was camping with my good friend. We went to Bruce Peninsula National Park, about a 3.5 hour drive to the north of Toronto. I hadn't been out of the city in almost 2 years. It felt amazing to finally get out, and we picked a good destination. I've never been there before. It was beautiful, fascinating, somewhat risky at the same time. Now, the Bruce Peninsula itself is about 50 kilometers long, maybe about 15 kilometers wide. I mean, it changes, it varies, but that's just on average, looking on Google Maps. And there's some towns there, there's agriculture, but a lot of that peninsula is wilderness, is forest land, very rugged terrain, a lot of marshes. That's what you encounter in the national park, which is on the north end of the peninsula, near the end of the peninsula, near the town of Tobermory. I didn't actually visit Tobermory because you can get gas, you can get other stuff on the way up. So there was no need for us to go all the way to the end there. Although I hear there's another lookout point around there. But basically, the park itself, the campgrounds are on flat terrain. Relatively okay privacy. I've been to Arrowhead Provincial Park. There's more privacy there, but still, it was pretty good campgrounds. And within a half hour, you can hike to the shores of Georgian Bay. Looking out from there, you're just looking out at an ocean, except the waves aren't so big. So anyways, put together some edited footage here. We're basically exploring these cliffs. We're hiking around. We're checking out the geological formations. That's what this area is really known for, the erosion, the geology, the ancient geological history. And we also got temporarily disoriented, a little lost. But I'm going to talk about that at the end of the video if you care to stick around. Anyways, hope you enjoy this. I know it doesn't fit the normal topics of my channel, but sometimes I do travel videos. What can I say? This is the Bruce Peninsula. We are standing high up, way up, way up. I have to be careful here, because if I jumped off there, that would be the end. This is Georgian Bay. Apparently, at the end of the last ice age, the level of the lake was many feet higher than it is today. So these cliffs were near the edge of the water. Now there are some serious overhangs in the Bruce Peninsula in these cliffs. Like, check out this overhang. How many feet is that jutting out of the cliff? I don't know. It looks like more than 10 feet. And there's just trees growing on top of it. And you could walk out onto one of these overhangs. Like, for all I know, the ledge I'm on, I could be on a ledge right now. We could be on a ledge right now. And we're just hoping it doesn't give way. Like, this is the sheer cliffside. Like, whoa, right off the edge there. 90-degree angle. I don't know how far down that is. I don't know. 100. How many feet up do you think we are? 100 feet?
Yeah.
At least. in there. Can't get through there. It's too tiny. The shoreline is like all this rubble, this whitish rock, and so you got to be really careful not to roll your ankle on all this stuff. It just goes on and on and on. There's no sand at all. It's very beautiful. I would not want to go swimming in that lake. That would be cold. You would never get me to go swimming in a lake like that. Not even in July. So we arrived at the park about 4 p.m. on Monday afternoon. We checked in with the office, got some firewood, drove to the campsite, set up our tents, made dinner, and by 8 p.m. we were all done with the dishes, and the sun was still high in the sky because it was kind of cloudy, but full daylight. I mean, the sun goes down really late at this time of year. We're still about 3 weeks, now 2 weeks before the solstice, the longest day of the year, and this is even farther north than Toronto, so it's probably even a little later than what I'd be used to. So I proposed that we go on a little hike, and my friend was definitely down for that. I was very prepared. I like to be prepared, and I was very prepared in the supplies that I had brought, but for some reason I didn't do my research on this park. That wasn't so wise. So I hadn't looked at the trails. I hadn't looked at any real maps. We had maps, though, with us. We had 2 maps. And I brought high-powered flashlights and all that stuff because you got to be prepared. And we ended up going towards Georgian Bay following the Horse Lake Trail. So we'd never been here before. That's a fairly well-trodden, well-maintained trail. We end up connecting to the Bruce Trail, which runs along the waterfront. There's a very narrow, stony beach there, not as wide as Boulder Beach, but very narrow, but the same kind of white rocks, white kind of rubble, and very scenic. And we started following that to the west, and in the distance we could see, I guess, the formation which is called Halfway Rock Point. We could see that sort of jutting out, and it's higher too. It's kind of like a higher hill. And at some point we entered the tree line because the Bruce Trail took us in there, and that was our first chance because we started climbing the hill to encounter these cliffs with all of their eroded formations. I didn't really film any of that. My camera wasn't working so well. Anyways, it wouldn't have been the best footage, but that was actually the first hike we did. And it was getting to the point where the sun was basically down, and it was almost a case of we pushed it a little further, and I knew in the back of my mind, like, okay, it's probably time we start heading back. And we smoked a joint looking out over this hill, and it was an amazing feeling, an amazing view. And now it was time to start heading back. And as we're going back through the trail, you see, the thing is, this Bruce Trail is not like the other well-maintained trails. It's not like the Georgian Bay Trail or the Horse Lake Trail or even the Mar Lake. Maybe the Mar Lake Trail might be similar because whenever you go over rocky terrain, it's hard to mark a path. So the officials who are responsible for maintaining the trails, they often put markers on trees. They make little white rectangles on trees, and the different patterns of rectangles are supposed to mean either there's a left turn ahead or there's a right turn ahead or stay straight. The thing is, in the trees, in these cedar trees, in the fading light, it gets very disorienting because the thing is, when you don't have a lot of soil, when there's these rock outcroppings, soil would naturally provide a path because that would be downtrodden. But there's just rocks here, so there's so much open space that you find yourself walking between trees, thinking you're following the path. These white markers are harder to interpret. It's much more subtle. So basically, at some point, I started to, this only took a matter of minutes probably, but I started to ask my friend Nathan Like, are we on the path? Are we still on the path? And we went on a minute more, and I was like, man, I don't think we're on the path anymore. But thankfully, we're in the tree line. The water, we can see the water through the trees. So I just said, let's go to the water, because I was starting to get kind of stressed out about that. And we found our way to the water, and then thankfully we were able to recognize enough that we made our way back to the Georgian, not the Georgian Bay Trail, the Horse Lake Trail, where it connects with the Bruce Trail, because there's a signpost there. And so this whole thing, didn't last very long. It was probably just a matter of minutes, but that was kind of like a very unpleasant feeling, knowing that you're in the woods in a place that you haven't been to before, and the sun's going down. I mean, and I have only myself to blame for that. I should have known better. My friend wasn't worried at all. He thought, I don't know, I just get more uppity about these things, because it could be a potentially really a dangerous situation. So I should have known better. And so basically, that was the first time we got disoriented. We followed the Horse Lake Trail back to the campground, and then we get to the campground, and the thing is, even though we knew we were probably within like 50 meters of where our campground begins, there were like different roads there. There was a parking lot. So it's like wonderful. There's a parking lot. Someone comes by here, but then there's these other trails, and again there was like confusion. And here it was really close to dark. I was turning on my high-powered flashlight. But by the way, if it had been 15 minutes later and we'd still been out on the waterfront in the trees, I mean, having a flashlight is only going to help you so much. This is particularly dangerous terrain because it's more rocky. There's more things to trip over. So that would have been even worse. So luckily we made it back just in time, and we were able to, of course, find our way to the campsite. But we had to retrace our footsteps a few times because we didn't recognize things looked different. Someone had placed a barrier, this wooden barrier. I don't remember seeing that. And I remember passing this parking lot, but there's no one else around. There's different angles you can look at this parking lot. And I don't know, the thing is, you end up on the wrong trail. You start going around Cypress Lake. That'll take you probably more than a kilometer. I don't know how long. It'll take you a ways. You could find, you wouldn't die. You'd just have to spend the night freaked out and cold in the woods until someone found you. And then maybe if you didn't have water, luckily I had some water. So anyways, that was kind of dumb. But we easily made our way back to the campsite. But basically, why did we get disoriented? Well, because we weren't entirely prepared. Because I hadn't studied the maps. Now, perhaps we should have made more mental notes. We should have rehearsed it better as we were moving forward. I don't think it's a big deal to go out at dusk, but it would be smarter to rehearse with your part. If you're with someone, then go over it. Like, okay, there's a turn here at this big tree, and try to make a mental picture of what you're seeing every 50, 100 yards if you can. Just build that. Some people are better at that than others, but I think it would help. I think the worst thing we did is that we were chatting, we were talking the whole time. Maybe, being high, that just made it more trippy and more scary, and probably, in that sense, probably wasn't smart to get high, because that's not necessarily going to, affect you like being drunk, but it might make you more antsy, and then in that sense, you might find it harder to concentrate on finding the right way out of here. But you shouldn't even be in that situation in the first place. So basically, we were talking again on the way back, and it's like, no. Like, I actually think the lesson here is that groups often, it's misleading to think that you're safe in a group when you're going out exploring somewhere. Because yes, you're safer, but that's also misleading. It can lead you into doing stupid things, which gets the whole group lost because everyone's talking. So I'm talking with my friend about different things. And so together we're not paying as much. This can happen in driving in the car too. Like, you might miss the gas station, or you might miss something because you're driving. But I noticed that we were talking on the way back too a bit. it's one thing to talk about the trail and to rehearse things so we're on the same page, but just loosely talking, having a conversation in that sort of situation, it's not the best idea, because a group can set off into the woods. There were those 2 young women that got lost in, Costa Rica, I think, or Panama. It was one of those Central American countries about 2 years ago. They just went up the mountain somewhere and made a wrong turn, and no one ever saw them alive again. No one basically ever even found their bodies. They just found a few bones. Like these 2 unfortunate young Dutch women wandered off the path and ended up probably trying to trace a river down to the sea, which is not a good idea, because they thought if they would take them down. But however that happened, who knows? But I can understand the context that it might happen, and I'm just thankful that something was watching over me there. Of course, my friend didn't think it was a big deal. So anyways, this story at the end of the video probably is nearly as long as the footage I've shown you here. If you've stuck around, then hope you enjoyed it. Hasta luego, amigos.